Pessimism is the madness of insisting that all is well when we are all miserable. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is, after the elections, Sri Lanka's current political landscape. Joining us this evening on the show are Member of Parliament representing the Samaga Jana Balawegaya, Iran Wickramaratne, Attorney at Law Harsha Nanayakara representing the National People's Power, Shanikan Rasamanikam, Member of Parliament representing the Tamil National Alliance, as well as Janaka Ratnayaka, former Chairman of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, as well as Leader of the National Front of Civil Organizations. Joining me this evening to pose questions from our panelists, on to my immediate right is Naveksha, on to my immediate left is Nadeem. You too can join in as far as the conversation is concerned. You can WhatsApp your messages to the number 076 656 5353. The number once again 076 656 5353. So let's get the ball rolling today with Iran Wickramaratne, Member of Parliament from the Samaga Jana Balawegaya. Iran, I'm going to pose a question to you. Just a couple of days ago, with regard to the COPE membership, you were one of the first parliamentarians to step down. Tell us what led to that decision.
Actually, the appointment of the chairman of COPE was the trigger. But the reason I resigned was not only because of him. The reason I resigned is, I've been on COPE for quite some time, and we bring in government business undertakings and corporations. We examine their financials based on the Auditor General's report, and then we also look at their performance management. And during the course of that, we figure out whether there has been poor management, we figure out whether we suspect that there has been fraud and corruption. And then we write a report and we give the report to Parliament. And very little action has followed because Parliament has to then proceed with the action. So, some time back, not in this, but in the earlier session of Parliament, we had suggested certain changes to the standing orders. So among those changes were giving COPE more teeth so that it could actually push for investigation. If it feels that there has been fraud or corruption, it could actually refer the case directly to the CEBOC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, or if you think there is a basis for pursuing it legally, that it could refer it directly to the Attorney General's Department. That was refused, and there's a refusal to change the standing orders of COPE. So that basically made COPE much weaker. Then the third reason was that the people that are being appointed to COPE, and this is not just in last week's appointments, but even in the previous period, that when you appoint people to COPE, you should appoint people with an educational background, with some experience in the subject matter, and that really helps. But above all, you must appoint people against whom there are no allegations, and particularly financial allegations. There have never been cases against them. Because after all, right, we are looking at the assets and liabilities of the nation through these institutions. When people, if they suspect our assets and liabilities, or we have not even declared it publicly, and we are supposed to be investigating and defending, the assets of the nation, I mean, that's really a question. So the issue here for me was more than an individual. It was really a systemic issue as well. The individuals were the trigger, but it was a systemic issue, and that's why I decided to put in my resignation.
Right after your resignation, Iran, several other members of Parliament also resigned from the COPE committee. One of them is Shanikan Rasamanikam, who is attending our session today as a panelist. But my question to you is, do you think that appointment was just?
First thing I would like to say is, as you said, many members of COPE have since resigned, and I have the highest respect for them for the reason that we never discussed it, that we are going to resign. Every member has made an individual decision and actually resigned. And I think that that's really laudable, that everybody started to think that really we need to make a change in the system. It's not just about an individual. One individual could be replaced by another individual, but there has to be really a systemic change, coming in here. So I think the issue here now is really for government, not for us. Because if the government doesn't recognize the seriousness of this and the government doesn't make any changes, I'm telling you, we are pushing this to the edge. I said it earlier, Gotabaya Rajapaksa was legal but not legitimate and had to go. Parliament is legal, but it's also its legitimacy is lost. And decisions like this make it worse. And I would say the present president is also legal, but even he is not legitimate. Therefore, I think people need to take seriously look at this and actually correct the system.
Iran, very quickly before I move to Harshana, the integrity of the COPE committee chairman should be unquestionable. He has to be a man with a lot of integrity because he's the individual who's going to look after the interest of the public at large. This appointment, does it raise a red flag?
It does, because it's not just about this appointment. The previous chairman of COPE, and I didn't know anything about the background of these people, present or previous, the accusations were made in the previous session about the previous chairman by members of the government, saying that that person was trying to hide information, manipulate the sittings of COPE, right? And particularly when the Sri Lankan cricket was under investigation, and even members of government. Now what happens, right? Instead of removing him or asking him to resign, they stop the proceedings of COPE. What kind of government is this? They stopped the proceedings of COPE. And they went one step further. They have nominated that chairman also into the present COPE membership. There are no standards here, and I don't know who is actually doing this, right? And therefore the government has to take full responsibility for this irresponsible behavior.
Is there a split in the SJB, Iran?
I don't know actually what you are referring to when you say.
Let me rephrase my question to you.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at individuals in the caliber of Rauf Hakim, who is also a member of the COPE committee and then also a member of the SJB as well through an alliance, he has not stepped down.
Yeah, I would like to make this distinction about the SJB as a political party, and then we have lots of coalition partners. And I said there is no party decision even on this. The party did not ask me to step down either. This was my individual decision, and I informed the party. I have high respect for the members of these other members as well, because I don't think they had party discussions there. As far as I know, these were individual decisions that were made by members of parliament in resigning.
The SJB is one unit so far.
SJB is, and even within the SJB, we haven't discussed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Iran Vikramratha, Member of Parliament from the SJB. I now move my attention towards Shanik and Rasamanika, Member of Parliament from the TNA. I'm just going to cross over to Shanik and then I'll come to you, Harshana. Because Shanik was also a member of the COPE committee. He resigned. But your intention to resign was completely different that of Iran or the others, because in Parliament he tried to assault you, and you said this in a couple of days ago as well. This prompted you to take a decision. Is that the right way to move forward in a situation like this, Shanik?
First of all, thanks for inviting me for Face the Nation, and good evening to everyone. Well, you've just picked up on one of the reasons that I pointed out. I've been part of COPE. This is my first term in Parliament, and since the first couple of years of Parliament, there was not many, we didn't have a lot of committees and other things to do within Parliament, so COPE was something that that we religiously attended. And it was actually, even though there's very limited powers on taking further action on any of the corruption that we were able to find out, it was very useful to be part of the COPE committee, because we were able to raise a lot of issues that we saw within the committee. When various organizations or enterprises were brought to the audit, we were able to raise a lot of questions, and some of these information that we were lucky to get by being part of COPE, we were able to use it to create awareness. Now, in fact, if you look at there is a widely circulated article with a couple of pages about the Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank, the people who haven't paid their loans, almost like bad debt. I was the first person to release that on Twitter, when X now was Twitter back then. and I released it on Twitter because I felt that people needed to know about that. But that was the last time we ever summoned BOC or COPE, and since then I've written many times to the chairpersons. We haven't received any information, but this happened in the first session of the parliament, so before parliament was prorogued the first time. And then thereafter there was a second person who was a chairman, the second chairman for COPE that I worked with. Was not like Honorable Iran said, there were, his own members were not happy with his conduct within COPE. And I've had instances where government MPs have come up to me and have told me that some of the pressure that we exert on some of the companies are being used by the chairman for various private gains outside. When we exert pressure within the COPE committee, it almost comes to a point where he seems to diffuse the situation. So all sorts of allegations were there. But still he was, whatever it is, his doctorate or his worth, he was a professor of some university. And now we have a person who has been appointed. I read an article written by this girl who claims to be a former minister's daughter, Achini Ediriveera. It was on the Colombo Telegraph. The article's heading is, "My father's driver Rattarang, how did he claim 10 billion in the last short period?" That's an article on Colombo Telegraph. I mean, reading an article like that, it was a disgrace for me to go and sit there and watch him question, officials, let it be SLEAS officers or SLAS officers or even, anybody, from any department, to watch him even question these people who have some sort of credibility or some sort of qualification to hold these positions, being questioned by a man who's got so many accusations, was not something that I could even comprehend doing. So, and one of the other reasons along with that was the fact that he just tried to assault me an hour before he was appointed as COPE chair, and incidentally that's the day that Honorable Basil Rajapaksa arrived to Sri Lanka. So I'm wondering if the COPE, after Parliament was prorogued, COPE, all the other committees started. COPE COPE committee chairman wasn't appointed till Basil Rajapaksa arrived. So, I mean, it could even be a reward for trying to assault a TNA MP because I was very harsh about, them going to welcome a person who bankrupted the country. So, I mean, there are many other reasons. One last reason that I said.
Just to remind you, this is not Parliament, so whatever statements that you make, you take full responsibility. So I'll just leave it at that in terms of the accusations that you're making against individuals. But
I haven't made any accusations. I've just stated facts.
Right. You mentioned, Shanikan, that you have been attending the COPE committee meetings religiously, and that's
in the first 2 years.
However, you are well aware that the COPE committee has been convening since 1979, 21st of June in Sri Lanka. Tell me one instance. Now we're talking about COPE, Shanikan, but tell me one instance that someone who has been found guilty at COPE has been prosecuted in Sri Lanka. Sad. Now you're saying you've been attending for the last 2 years, but just tell me, COPE has been established in the country in 1979. Since then, one instance, I don't want a couple, I want just one instance where justice has been meted out.
Well, see, I said I've attended religiously for the first 2 years. I haven't been part of, I wasn't even born in 1979. For me to worry about what happened back then.
But you're unfortunately, you can't say that.
I can't worry about something that happened in 1979 just because I'm MP today.
But Shanikan, you're a parliamentarian now. You have to be responsible. You have to be responsible. You have to know what's happening since 1948 also, because now you're responsible for the people of the country.
I can't take responsibility for something that's been going on since 1979, something that's been going on since 11 years before I was born. But what I can tell you is that within Parliament, in every given opportunity, we have raised these issues. Like Honorable Iran Vikramaratne said, COPE needs to be strengthened. But we are in a situation where parliamentary majority is being used to bulldoze through anything and everything that they want to. We are in a position where there are many credible names within the committee, where they gang up and use their majority within the committee to appoint their own chairman. How are we supposed to? I mean, it's a valid question. Then you can ask me back. You can ask me again, saying, why are you in Parliament? Well, I'm not in Parliament only to change COPE, but it's for greater good for the country that we hope to achieve. And just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean we lose heart and stay at home.
Right. Thank you very much, Shanikan Rasamanik, a member of Parliament from the TNA. as a very young parliamentarian, Shanik, and we expect, or the people of your electorate will expect you to know what went on before as well.
My
and as such,
expectation of the people of my electorate are far beyond what's going on with Pope. Let's not get into what my people of my electorate are really looking for right now.
You'll have to know the history as well. So I now move my attention towards Attorney General Harshana Naikar, working committee member of the National People's Power. Harshana, who's your prime ministerial candidate, hypothetically, if an election is held in the next few months?
Well, basically, from what we gather, it will be the presidential election that is going to come forward. I think we have already announced Anuruddha Saranaika's name as the presidential candidate. And also, if that be the case, then of course he can't contest a general election to be the prime minister.
Then who would it be?
Harini Amarasuriya's name has been discussed, but no formal announcement yet. But I can confidently say that her name has been discussed and there's common approval for it, but no official announcement yet.
Is there a consensus between the members of the party on her appointment?
Actually, this was indicated by Vijay Herath, who himself is part of NPP plus. He was the JP propaganda secretary, so I believe there is consensus.
Right. So, Harshana, one of the allegations leveled by the people is the fact that talking about politics and political parties and their conduct over the years, the NPP seems like the way forward now. However, in terms of substance, the party lacks a lot of ground. How do you counter such allegations made by people?
Well, some of the people who are not aware of us, but from 2019 onwards, we were in the scene. Although we were reduced to 3%, thereafter we continued to engage with the people. Actually, right now we are the ones who engage the most with various meetings, rallies, TV interviews. So we do have substance, we do put it out. But of course there are, certainly if you take the SJB or the UMP, they may not agree with what we say naturally. But we do have substance and we do have policies. So, but we are regularly updating them because the country's situation is drastically changing. So the last time we put out a manifesto was 2019, which I believe by and large outdated now because after what happened in 2022. So therefore, I believe as soon as election is announced, our new detailed manifesto will be out. But we are planning because of exactly what you said, Shamir, that people are saying that we have no policy, which is not the case because we do come on stage and say that. But a written document, a new one, a written document, within the next month or so, we will put out conceptually a policy document out. So I believe we do have substance.
So when you look at the history, I want to go back.
It's all right.
I'm pretty sure, Harshana, you probably were born during that time in 1982, the presidential election. Between Rohan Vijayveera and J.R. Jayawardena. Rohan Vijayveera was able to garner 250,000 votes at that election, and he came in third. So he was representing the JVP at that time as an individual. There were a lot of crowds for those campaigns as well. J.R. Jayawardena was not able to gain a lot of momentum in terms of grassroots level publicity, but Rohan Vijayveera was gaining a lot of momentum at grassroots level in 1982 presidential election, but he came in third. Would that be the same fate of the NPP at a future election?
Very unlikely, but there seems to be quite an idea which you were kind enough to go back to 1982. Others are just doing it like from 2019. They ask us the question, can you go from 3%?
My next question is that.
Fine, okay, fine.
I'll come to that momentarily.
So I believe we have little information of 1982. And it was a brand new and a relatively new party. They were registered after they were working from 1965, and I think JR was quite popular at that time. So I believe he had more crowds than the JP did anyway, but no video documents or YouTube for us to see what you are saying is true and what I'm saying is true. But believe me now, maybe I'm touching on the next question as well for you. Right now, what we have, we are definitely not 3%. Even our opponents know that. We are on a massive upward scale. So the question they ask, can you go from 3% to a 50%, so to speak? I would like to say that it is quite possible because politics is a social science, not a mathematical science. There are leaps, there are drops, Because politics, voter base does not depend on just
So
what
let's
we say
say-
or do,
right,
but
so-
with a lot of other circumstances
Right.
also.
So let's say
it's possible.
Harshana, so let's say Harshana, there is a genuine election, hypothetically after presidential election. Let's put things into perspective. Tell me a few candidates who would be contesting from electorate. Now we know from Mathara, Sri Handunati may contest, from Gampa, which is the Herat may contest. So we know individuals in that caliber will be contesting an upcoming election. But let's take a look at Colombo. Let's take a look at the Eastern Province. Who are the candidates you all have to field at a future election?
Well,
Because the name is good. The name you find the NPP gaining momentum. You say 3% to more than 50%. All that is well and good. But just tell me, who are the candidates who will be contesting at these elections? Have you at least decided?
we are very much decided. But the thing is, we have a discipline and a commitment that only the party announces candidates. I don't come on a TV show and announce candidates. I don't do that. Right? We do have them. We have organizers for almost all the electorates. Yes, they may not be as popular because they may not all come on TV, they may not be as popular. But even from the East, we do have. Even from the North, we have. Whether they will win or not, that's a different matter. We'll leave it at that. But you cannot say that we don't have the people. We do have the people. But announcing them at a TV show, for me, that is very ill-advised.
Let's go back to 1977 when Cinema Bandaranaike.
When I was about 5, yeah.
When,
Go on,
when,
yeah.
when you were about 5, I was not even born.
Good for
but
you.
again, but again, being a journalist, you have to know about the history as well. So anyway, so 1977, when the UNP contested the elections, anyone who contested from the UNP almost won that poll and got a resounding victory of 2/3.
Five-sixths.
Yeah.
5/6.
Yeah, so if you look at it, but I want to ask you, Harshana, what is going to happen at an election? Do you think people will vote on those same lines because they're fed up of all the political parties?
I think I agree with you partly because you see, what we've been saying and doing is more or less the same, at least from 2019, if not earlier by the JVP.
Right.
Of course, we have to update our policies, but the general policy direction is the same. But suddenly people started hearing us. Why? It happened after 2022, after the departure of Gotabaya and the departure of Mahinda Rajapaksa. People start hearing us. And we are all surprised the way people have started changing. But we feel at the ground level, they are asking for a system change. When they say system change, take that word in a deeper meaning. They are asking for this corrupt political culture to change, not just the economy. Corrupt political culture
We
to
saw
change.
a system change in 2019. Look at where we are today. Ourselves.
Exactly. So it's not a system change, it's more of the
what
same.
assurance we have that you all will be even
That's another
better or
good question.
worse?
Look at our past. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the Rajapaksas were running this place like a family. If you look at, we are a team of professionals and politicians without any family
We saw the
affiliations.
Professionals coming in 2019 also. you said,
2019, the
yeah,
Viatmaga, no. Again, there's a difference. Viatmaga was used as a accessory.
Right. So we'll come back to
No,
that.
no,
I'll give you an opportunity.
No, you're asking me questions.
No,
so
I will definitely give you I'll give you an opportunity to
Right, can I just
respond.
finish off?
Yes,
Then I
yes,
can
yes.
finish off
very
my
quickly,
one.
very quickly, yes.
The answer is, can we win a general election? Do we have people? The answer is yes.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much, Attorney Addo Harshana Naikara.
You're asking me questions.
Janaka
What
Ratnayake,
will the
former
answer?
chairman of Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, leader of the National Front of Civil Organizations. Janaka, now recently, I think a couple of weeks ago, when I was passing by Burel, because I take that road generally to go to work, I see this massive hoarding. Janaka Ratnayake, next
Therefore,
president,
2024.
24.
Yes,
You're contesting the elections.
I am contesting. So I am the first to, I think, announce my candidacy for the presidency.
Sri Lankan presidential election.
Sri Lankan presidential election.
When?
We have been talking about many things that happened since 1948, especially from 1979, COPE and things like that. Now the people of this country got fed up of politicians and the parties. And don't you think that non-politician who has worked for the people will not have a chance?
2019, Gotabaya Rajapaksa was.
No. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has come from a political background.
But he appointed
Not only
you,
his
no?
brother,
He
his
appointed
father
you.
was even a
He
politician.
appointed you to the PUSSL, no?
Usually, the
No, but he appointed, no?
usually the president or the
Gotabaya Rajapaksa appointed you to the Public Utilities Commission, right?
in 2021,
But he thought you were a professional at that time, but then you were also chased out of the Public Utilities Commission.
I was not, I was chased out by the so-called parliamentarian who has been there since 1948, like the same politicians, who has been there, governing the country. And you can see what has happened today. Country has become bankrupt. And who is responsible? Now you want me to say that the same politicians will be able to rescue this country from the misery that we are in? You need
So let's
now
say,
you were talking about
let's say hypothetical.
Yes.
So good that you're contesting Janaka Ratnayaka, and we hope and pray that you have an edge at an election, and we wish you all the very best. Whether you win or not, we don't know. Let's say you're appointed as the president of the country.
yes.
Who's going to support you in parliament?
Now the
You
person,
win. You, let's say, Janaka
Yes.
Ratnayaka, next president of the country, 2024, you can put that hoarding down and then put up another hoarding saying president now.
president elected.
Now tell me, how are you going to run?
Now, how
parliament?
is the current president running the country?
Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Yeah. Now, see, he did not have even the vote to, come into the parliament, from
Who's going to support you? We have SJP, we have
until the
NPP,
next
we have
election.
TNA.
Yes, I think there are many good politicians, maybe, like genuine politicians. In
I want to ask about each one of them whether they support you, but that's not right.
No. I don't think that, you should ask that question. But I feel now until the next general election is held, now it's the choice of the president who will be elected. So he can probably take a, decision to have it maybe in a very shorter period or maybe go for the full term. Now, when that happens, the people again given the choice to select the right people. But until such time, you have maybe many methods to run the parliament. And
But
now see, for good or bad, they use the politicians. Many politicians support maybe the wrong policies. But if you have the right policies, I think that not only 120, you can get more than 200 votes in favor of those good policies. Now, when a president becomes...
I don't understand that, sorry.
No. Now see, if you look at the decisions that have taken during the last 2 years. Now you talk about taxes or maybe many things they decided at the parliament. Now we say it's bad for the country or bad for the people, but the politicians support it with majority. Now say you take a budget or whatever it is, they support all this. Now say if a new president comes, he has good policies. Don't you think that this politicians will not support that president? They will support. Now what happens over here, the politicians do not have a vision for the country. Now so whoever has been governing this country for last 76 years, and they did not have a good vision. Now the next leader should have a good vision for the country.
So let's say, Janaka, you are appointed as the president of the country, so you will act based on the whim and fancy of the parliamentarians.
No. I say
They will vote you out.
No.
They will impeach you. You didn't know what happened in the 80s when Premadasa Ranasinghe, I was only 4 years old at that
No.
time.
What I say is
impeachment
that-
motion was to be tabled.
No, what I say is that
You
now
can't remember.
if the politicians are supporting the present president with this maybe good or bad governance, and they will support. Now, if the president brings good proposals or maybe good things, the parliament will support.
Let me
until
ask
you
very-
select a new.
So let me ask you one final question before we open the floor. What is the qualification of Janaka Ratnayaka to become the president of the country, apart from being appointed by Gotabaya Rajapaksa to the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka as chairman?
No, I don't think that my appointment as the chairman of PUCSL is not a qualification. Now, you need to see what I have been doing with my public jobs for last maybe couple of years or maybe for last 15 years. Whatever the assignment I was given, I have done to benefit the people. I have not probably, although I am appointed by the president of the country, all three positions that I held, I was the chairman of Merchant Bank during the financial crisis. Then I was the chairman of Export Development Board from 2010 to 2013, at PCSL from 2021 until I was outvoted. Now, during these three jobs that I have done always good to the people. Whatever the opportunities given to me, I have not gone behind politicians. I have probably, that the problem that I have been having with always with my high posts, that I do not agree with what politicians say. So I had the same issue in 2013 when the Minister of Industries wanted me to resign from EDB. I said, I can't. Now see, I do, when I given a public assignment, I work for the people. So in the same way, if I'm
You're
elected as a
saying-
president, I will make sure that.
So you're saying being the chairman of a public committee or a state enterprise is good enough for you to become president of the country?
No. It is not a qualification. No, you need to see the credibility of the person, what he has been doing maybe with...
Have you campaigned,
you have seen
Kalam?
politicians with maybe 40, 50 years in parliament. What have they done?
Have you
They just
campaigned?
go and shout at the parliament. What have they done? They have done nothing.
Have you,
Apart from, talking, you talk about all these politicians who are there for maybe 15 to 20 years. Now say, even in committees like COP and things like that, they talk. Have they delivered? They haven't delivered anything. So you need a person who has delivered with the given opportunities and to deliver what people need in the future.
Right. Thank you very much, Janaka Ratnayake, former chairman of PUSCSL Sri Lanka and leader of the National Front of Civil Organizations. On to my immediate right is Naveksha, left is Nadeem. Naveksha? Let's start with the lady in the table.
I'd like to start off with Mr. Janaka Ratnayake. Now, you were so confident about,
I'm very confident.
running for presidency.
Yes.
But we've seen in the history of elections that it's always the three parties and then you get the individual candidates, but there is a really big gap between the votes that they get. So even if you take the previous elections, even if NPP comes to the third place, the next individual candidates have a huge gap. So what makes you think that you can, top all these parties without a backing of another political party, and you can come in there as an individual and top all of this and still become the president? What makes you so special? Why would people vote for you?
Why should people vote for me? Now people have voted enough for last 25 years. What have they got?
But people,
Half of the people are starving and having many problems. What these politicians have delivered for last 25 years. Now, if the people to, trust and maybe, go like this, maybe for another 75 years, you think that they can reach the objectives? Now,
when
we are talking about...
when you speak of trust,
Yes.
there are so many allegations with regards to parliamentarians and their asset declarations and corruption. Have you declared your assets?
I have declared my assets for last maybe couple of years when I was at the commission.
So
I
people
have no
can
issue
trust.
in declaring
People
my
can
assets.
trust in you.
People should trust a non-politician, an entrepreneur now, because they have got fed up of all these traditional
Yeah,
politicians.
we've had
You had-
fair share of people like that
Where?
in Sri Lanka.
Can you name a few?
There are a lot of candidates who are now saying that they want to contest and they are entrepreneurs, and there are a couple of people who
There are difference between entrepreneur and a businessman.
You are a businessman or an
I'm
entrepreneur?
not a businessman. I'm not
Then?
a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur.
I'm not a businessman.
Okay. So, Iran, if Janaka looks straight at you and Harshana and then pose the question, what has politicians done? And even Shanikan, what has politicians done over the last 75 years? They've made people starve. Why must we appoint you all? Now, I am the right candidate. What would be your response? I'm going to give every member 1 minute each, so y'all can respond, and then we can take the conversation from there onwards. Iran, first to you.
I think we have to look at this in perspective. Politicians fought for independence from the British, and we have become an independent nation. And then in the 70s and the 80s, right, at independence, we were even importing our rice, big percentage of it. By the 1980s, we were self-sufficient. We have lots of achievements in irrigation and in agriculture during that period. In those early parts, we didn't have electricity connections. The electricity connections are nearly 99% throughout the country. Then, if you looked at education, there have been achievements, in terms of education. But if you look at the last, 2 decades or so, or maybe 2.5 decades, we haven't advanced at the same pace that we advanced previously. So I won't dismiss all politicians. I would say that there have been periods in which, there have been achievements, and then there have been periods in which the achievements have really, really slowed down. So we have actually, if you take us in a league, in South Asia, we may still be quite high, but if you take us in a league in Asia, we've really got to the bottom of the league, and we have a lot to do to turn it around and to begin to climb that league. So certainly, I say if you look at it in a fair way, certainly in the last 20 years, we have really got things really, really messed up. We never heard about corruption like we are hearing it now in the earlier period. We may not have agreed on policies, there may have been differences in policies, like even if you take the left parties at that time and their politicians, we may have disagreed in terms of ideology, but they are very honorable people in those movements, even in the early years. So I won't dismiss all politicians.
So Harshana, the allegation was, I think, leveled straight at the NPP because...
Yeah, I will not take it personally, but I will answer the question. Well, more along like what Honourable MP here, Mr. Ramkumar says, that is, there have been politicians who have run down the country and those who have served. But yes, there's a marked difference prior to 1977 and after 1977. That is, prior to 1977, as Mr. Ramkumar said, right? The politicians were honourable. For them being in the parliament or a council didn't mean their livelihood was dependent on the income or whatever they earned out of it. They were mainly the aristocracy who had the means to live, right? They were having the means to live. So corruption, waste there would have been, but corruption is not something you heard. But after 1977, a lot of the normal common man came into parliament. That should be the case, which we support. But when they came along, coupled with open economy and jazz thing, I think from the 80s it started where we were becoming very money-minded. Right? And people also started voting for people just because it's Ape Mahathir or something. Whereas prior to 1977, no matter how much money you would have, you would like to lose the electorate if you're not an honourable person. So even the vote kind of changed. The value system changed. So I think, as he pointed out, during the last 2-3 decades, politicians were bad, they were corrupt, they were waste. Not all of them, because there are 1 or 2 good persons, right? Obviously. But what we need in the future is not to have 1 or 2 good politicians, but a set of good people in the opposition benches as well as there. Look at the parliament now. It's chaotic. Runs without a mandate. I mean, honestly, people do not trust the parliament anymore. Recent research says people don't trust the parliament at all. That's what they're saying. So therefore, yes, we need politicians because they're the ones who are going to run the country with an input and guidance and a vision from professional bodies and professional persons, not on their own.
So Sharikan, now your political party has been there in the scene for a long time. Would you all support an entrepreneur or a business person who will come to the fray in the next few months as a presidential candidate?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of my party without the consent of my party, or it's a matter for the Central Committee and the Working Committee and all of them to decide. But however, along with the accusation against politicians that was made a little while ago, I mean, I don't take it personally either. You see, there are politicians, when you have politicians, you divide the politicians into 2 categories. Politicians who have had power and politicians who haven't had power. So, Ilangai Thamarasikachi, the party that I represent, has been in parliament, contested parliament elections since 1952 under various symbols or whatever, various symbols or names. We have never had any political power. We have always been in the opposition. And the reason for that is because we have our party's our party is built on the ideologies that our party is to advocate for power devolution so that everybody has access to political power. And, since independence, every single leader of this country have betrayed the Tamil politicians. So I don't think any of the party members, myself or even prior to myself, since 1952, have played any part in bankrupting this country or even whatever corruption allegations that most politicians face. Because true, we may have not achieved, what we have promised to achieve for our people, but our people understand that, because since we only have a very small number of MPs, that all Tamil people get together in the north and the east, get together and vote. Even let's say all Tamil speaking people in the entire country get together and vote, we'll still be a significantly smaller number. We can't really form a government. So therefore,
sorry,
sure.
Just on that note, you said even though it's a significantly, sorry, you'll excuse me, my facial expressions related to the migraine and not to what's being said.
Like the Bangladesh cricket player.
Yeah. Although you say it's a significantly smaller number, we know that at the upcoming election, especially at the presidential election where the entire country is one electorate, the political power that the ITAC wields in the north and east will be a crucial factor, may even be the deciding factor. Especially, we saw that happen in 2015 as well with Maithripala Sirisena was his in 2005. If the north had voted, we may be seeing a very different Sri Lanka today. In these circumstances, there are now within political circles, there are concerns that the ITAC may put its own candidate forward because you've had enough of either explicitly or implicitly backing candidates from the South. And that might further split this already fairly chaotic presidential election race. What is your take on that as an MP representing the Batticaloa district?
Well, you see, before every presidential election, there is a lot of interest about the ITAC and ITAC's policy and what the ITAC wants and what the Tamil people want. But post-election, I mean, in that sense, Gotabaya Rajapaksa is the only person who didn't have interest. He openly said, I don't want your votes. And even after he got elected also for a couple of years, he didn't even want to meet us. See, I mean, whatever said and that, that on that aspect, the man had principle just on that.
He was honest.
He was honest.
He was honest about his intentions.
If he was honest or if he was arrogant or if he was stupid, I'll leave that. But, he didn't want the support of us. But every other president, let it be Maithripala Sirisena in 2015, let it be Sarath Fonseca who tried to become president in 2010, even before that, obviously when the times of the LTT, the political parties had very much a lesser, public influence on elections. Before the election, there's a lot of interest, a lot of, enthusiasm to meet and talk. So obviously, a lot of people in the north and the east, are fed up because the war has ended. War came to an end in 2009, and 15 years later, we are still talking about the same issues. And added to the political power issues, there is a issue about human rights violations and a lot of unanswered questions that a lot of mothers are still out on the streets. Almost 2,500 days the protest has been going on. It's one of the longest protests in the history of the, that people registered history. So, if these concerns cannot be addressed and they haven't been addressed, naturally there'll be, people with, other opinions who would feel that we must put, that there's absolutely no chance to win. I've heard the sentiment of some people even going on to saying that we should have a Tamil candidate and treat that as a referendum where all Tamil people, put down a few, things saying, power devolution or a right to self-determination or take Sri Lanka to ICC, even though, the Sri Lanka hasn't signed the Rome Statute law. There are people who don't say it out. They still say that there is a way to take Sri Lanka to the ICC. All these very idealistic ideas, put those 5 principles and say, vote for a Tamil candidate, let the international community see this as a referendum. I mean, even though if the government will never hold a referendum or it doesn't look like it will, let's create our own referendum.
When you look at, on that, when you look at things like, this is the economic crisis that we're facing now, let's say, is a recent development. But for the longest time, we've been talking about the national problem, the Jatika Prashna, which has been, throughout the civil war and all that, right to self-determination, how much autonomy should the provinces have, etc. You have the JVP, I'm not sure what the NPP's stance is now, but the JVP has historically been opposed to the implementation of the 13th Amendment. Other parties have maybe to an extent paid some lip service to the implementation of the 13th Amendment, but they haven't really followed through. It's been, like you said, before the elections, there may be some chatter about it. When you look at the field of candidates that are coming forward from the South, let's say most likely to have a chance from the NPP, from whether it's the SJB, whether it's a UNP, SLPP alliance, or even if it's Mr. Janaka Ratnayaka, do you feel that we will finally see a resolution to this national problem that has existed, pretty much since 1948, basically, since independence? Do you think we'll see a resolution to that in the near future?
Well, let me finish the answer to your earlier question. I don't think it's a good idea to have a Tamil candidate because it'll polarize the Tamil community even further, and it'll be a distinction between, it'll cause unnecessary tensions, further tensions, and I don't think, this is my personal view, not I can't speak on behalf of my party, but then there are people who are promoting this idea. I'll tell you why that is. That is to stop the votes from going to another candidate. So some potential candidates who feel that they may not get the Tamil votes are promoting the idea of a Tamil candidate, so the Tamil votes will not go to another candidate. right? So that is also on the card. So that is
there's
one.
political horse trading happening in the background.
Obviously, I mean, this is, not, I don't have exact concrete proof to say who and how, but we have a lot of gossip about this, that we hear. But the answer to your question about will we see, a solution? Well, I think in the interest of the country, we better see a solution, because I think without a solution, we're not going to get very far ahead, because this country right now, we are not paying any debt. We're just, whatever foreign exchange that we get, it goes to, like a saving. When we have to eventually start paying debt, where are we going to get the money from? We need to attract foreign direct investments, and to attract foreign direct investments, the North and the East has a large amount of untouched resources, untapped resources, a lot of potential. Right now, they are all being, they're all up for grabs right now. It seems like there are a lot of, interest happening in the North and East, but there's still more potential. But for investments to come, there has to be political stability in the North and the East as well.
Yeah.
Let's say there's, elections happen and political stability is there in the country, where, there is a strong parliament, maybe, not a parliament like this parliament, but a stronger parliament with legitimacy, and also a parliament where there is consensus, at least amongst the ruling party. That doesn't necessarily mean there is political stability in the North and the East. We have protests every week about 10 different things, unresolved issues that have been unresolved for decades. Issues that people face. We had even a protest inside the well of the parliament 3 days ago for illegal arrest done by the police. The justice minister said that we can't release them without inquiry. The court released them, saying that the police have arrested them without any... so that justice minister is not aware of what's going on. I mean, he doesn't have to be aware, but he doesn't have to be aware of every single court case that's happening, but then he gave an answer. So what I'm saying is, there'll be instability across the North and the East. So any investment that will come, investors will run, because they don't want people outside their, new investment protesting and blocking their way and, saying, get out of the North and the East if you don't give us political power. So so in the interest of the country, I hope, whoever, maybe let it be Janaka Ratnayaka, or let it be NPP, or let it be SP, Sajid Premadasa.
Way to resolve it.
Somebody should be genuine. They can...
What is the position of the SJB on the 13th Amendment to the Constitution and on devolution of power?
So we believe that the 13th Amendment must be implemented.
In full?
Yes,
police powers?
Clearly I will admit that there are issues, particularly because you refer to police powers and land. These have been the two outstanding things. I think on land there has been a lot of discussion, and ways forward are much clearer. Much clearer. On police powers, still there has to be some discussion, and I would say it's to do more with basically psychological factors of people being really scared. And they are not scared about the North and the East. Even police powers in the hands of the provincial councils in the South, people are concerned about, So as I said, that's something that has to be really, really worked out.
Mr. Just on that issue, I mean, you look at right now, if you have concerns about devolving police powers to provincial councils, you look at how police powers are being used at the center, I find that much more concerning.
So I agree with you. In fact, I once told the then president at that time, I said that you lived in California and you knew about the state police and the central police, and you know how the police actually functions. I had this conversation one-on-one. How the police functions, right, in those jurisdictions, and that it can be done to ensure that they actually support each other, but their functions are actually defined.
If you look
and they're more accountable.
Even India, for that matter, it happens quite well.
So it's really, that's why I say it's really an issue of fear, an issue of psychology, and what you said is absolutely correct. You can have corruption in the center, or you can have corruption in the devolved area. Whichever way, the corruption needs to be taken care of.
But if it is devolved, isn't it easier for the public to hold them accountable as well?
I won't.
Right now,
I wouldn't say that necessarily, for the only reason that these units are very small. I would put it differently. I would put it that the principle of devolution is important, right? Because you are moving decisions to the people at the bottom, rather than every decision being taken at the center. That's one reason I'm for it. The other reason is, however much we say that we are being fair and equitable, right? Sometimes when it comes to race and religion, majoritarianism prevails. And the chances of having a more just society is greater if actually power is devolved. I'll give you a simple example. Simple example is, and this conversation came up between Tamil MPs and myself, right? They said, look at your cabinet, right? Most of them are Sinhalese. There's hardly any Tamil in the cabinet. This is what they told me. And they said, you have all these ministries. Under these ministries, you have all these institutions. You make all these appointments to all the boards of these institutions. And therefore, you make the appointments of the people you actually know. And actually, the people in the minority community get left out. I'm telling you, an actual discussion that took place between me and them. Then I began to realize what they are actually saying. Some of these things may not be done consciously, but even unconsciously. So that when you devolve and get people at the bottom involved in the process, I think you get a much more just.
Have you all spoken directly to the TNA or even the Lanka Tamil Rasa culture, because they are dominating the north and east right now in terms of political will, political power. Has the SJB directly met the ITAC and had a conversation with them about the devolution of power? Because we always see Iran, usually come an election, there are discussions with Tamil political parties, Muslim political parties. Have you all done that?
No, I would say that recently we haven't had an official level discussion. The discussions have been more between individual MPs and so forth. So there hasn't been, I would say, at a party level officially sitting with political parties and discussing this issue. I don't think, I'm not aware that it has actually happened.
Mr. Nanakar, what is the NPP's, I mean, we know that historically the JVP has been opposed to the 13th Amendment. It has been one of their core sort of fundamental policy positions as well. But, you know, the NPP is it's a coalition. You have the NIO, there's new people in it. Has the stance on devolution, not just the 13th Amendment, but on devolution of power in general, has it changed? Has it evolved?
Well, basically, since we are not the JVP, as well as you must understand how it came about. I think the JVP opposed to how it came about. It was not argued in the parliament. It was not even put to the cabinet. It was forced down the throat of the people of this country without an election by Jaya Jayawar to save his skin. So there were certain circumstances, even at that time, we were against it, especially the way it came about. And the IPKF arriving after that. So there's a historical context in it which happened. So now 2019, so many about 30 years later, even way back in 2019 when Andhra contested the election under NPP, our first election, the manifesto has a section on that, which we say we are for political and administrative devolution. Let's not get hooked by to the labels. That is, separate state, federal state, self-determination, forget all that. But we believe when we say our people, we refer to the people in the north and the east and the south as well. Not just the Sinhalese. Our people, Sri Lankan people. We have to accept the fact they were wronged. Yes, there's at least a good 50 years of wrong that's been done on both sides sometimes. But politicians. What we are trying to do is to heal this wound. And after the war was over, we never use the word the war was won. We say after the war was over, right? We had the chance of doing it. So basically what we are saying is, yes, we are willing to discuss. Even now we are engaging civil society and a lot of people in the north and the east about it because we have no qualms about the 13th Amendment. Now, has the 13th Amendment really solved the problems of the north?
It has not been implemented for it to solve.
It has not. It has not solved, right?
But it has not been implemented for it to.
Well,
it has not been seen in action.
Parts are fully implemented. What I'm trying to say is that even the land issue, I think Mr. Crow was saying, but I was going through another document, but land powers are not a part of the Provincial Council, even the 13th Amendment. Right? So land is a serious issue for them. And I mean, there are certain issues the northern citizen is experienced because they are Tamil. And those are separately has to be addressed. True. But we are promoting a new constitution. We cannot be tinkering with this old constitution. When under NPP government, hopefully if we form it this year.
You also sound
But Mr. Nanakar, does that mean that the NPP is
you all sound pessimistic?
No, I don't want to be, what do you call, I don't want to be like, too arrogant about it.
Overconfident.
I'm overconfident and arrogant about it. Please let me finish this one line. Just one line, please. One line. With the new constitution, we want to make sure that all races and religions live in the country in a dignified manner. And to that end, we are willing to discuss with almost anyone.
Mr. Nanakar, but the thing is, these discussions have been happening already over many years, like with various political actors have already been having these discussions. What I'm asking is, through a new constitution, does that mean that you're planning to sort of reinvent the wheel?
No.
The new or do you have a structure in mind?
If you're going to
Gotabaya Rajapaksa's structure was 25 district councils.
Right. Basically, how can we, if you are going to go to negotiation genuinely with the people of the North, how can we take a model and go to them? We must discuss them and ask them what the model that you want.
All have not even spoken to them.
No, not with the TNA, not officially, but
the model,
on the sidelines of the parliament, I'm sure we have spoken. But when we say the North,
Shaniket?
not officially, I don't think so.
Have they?
Sorry, Mr. Nanakar, just on that.
Let's get MPs.
I just want to know, Shaniket, has the NPP?
Because we speak to all the NPP.
Yeah, but have they officially spoken?
Yeah,
but have you
no
spoken
official
officially about?
No. What I'm trying to say is this: we are inviting the people of the North. I mean, look here.
Do you all want the? Do you all want the votes in the North and East?
Yes, Shavi. I will tell you. Right? What's your question again? Then?
So my question is now in the North they've already expressed support for the 13th Amendment as the structure that they would like to see. Am I wrong?
Well, we haven't said that 13th Amendment is a final solution.
Exactly.
But hold on. We have always said that we want to build
It's a starting point.
Build upon the 13th Amendment. So
that's a model that you can go with. For the discussion.
Yes, I agree. So build upon that. Because even the Northern themselves, they think the 13th Amendment. But we are not going to upset the 13th Amendment in any way. Please, let me finish this off. Right, please, one line. We are not going to change anything of the 13th Amendment right now because the Northern people feel after all those struggles that they have something to start with. So, therefore, we're not going to upset the apple cart there. But we'll definitely work with them for a solution. It's open for discussion.
Is that a good enough answer, Shanik? I've heard all this. I've heard 13 plus, I have heard 13 minus. I've heard this over the last 20 years.
I'm not using any of them. I'm just saying we are open for discussion for political and administrative divisions.
Is that a good enough answer?
I think to be fair to both the participants, I think it's a larger question that needs to be discussed as political parties jointly because this is not something that's it. I mean, we should at least have a separate program on Face the Nation on this because otherwise we are putting them in
But I want to ask, Janaka, what is your position on the devolution of power? Amendment?
Yeah, we have been talking about this 13th Amendment for last 10 years. So we'll be talking about this with the
We've been talking about 13th Amendment since 1987.
87 plus, after the amendment is introduced into the 13, almost for 10 years. So we'll be talking this subject for next 25 years. Now, it is not the centralized or decentralized system that we are talking about. We are talking about one nation, one country. So, who needs the constitution? The people of the country. The next president of this country should talk to every
community,
the party, or maybe the ethnic group, and make sure with the public consultation, you draft a constitution where every community, every party will agree.
Janaka, let me ask you a very simple question. Now, you already announced a candidature for the elections, right?
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Right. Have you visited the North and East since then?
Yeah, we have. I have visited many times.
Which villages have you visited?
No, not the villages. I have gone to the towns, on my business matters and other matters.
No, I'm not asking business matters.
I'm just telling you.
On campaigning.
Yes.
On campaigning.
Not yet.
Not yet. Have you spoken to the people of the North and East about what they require, what they want, what is in their minds, especially after the end of the conflict? Shanikin spoke about the protest that has been held for years. Have you spoken to them to understand what they want?
Whether it is North and East or South.
No.
I'm talking about
if you are going to contest a presidential election.
Yes.
It's one. I don't know whether you know. It's one electorate. You have to get votes from every district.
Yes.
So you can't like Gotabaya Rajapaksa said. You can't do without
No. I'm talking about
people.
This is one country, one nation.
If you want to do that, I don't know.
No. This is one country, one nation.
Okay.
Now, if who wants the constitution, the people wants it. Now, when...
But you're not answering my question. Have you spoken to the Tamil people about their problems?
I have spoken to Tamil people.
I am a Muslim.
Yes,
do you know the problems of the Muslim people in this country?
Do you know the problem of Sinhalese people?
Of course.
Yeah, likewise, I also know.
What is it?
But
Tell
no,
me.
no, no, no. Now you can't answer. I can't give you a direct answer because there are many questions.
Okay.
So when I ask you, you know the problems of the Sinhalese, you say yes. Likewise, I will say I know the problems of North East, the Tamils, Muslims, and every citizen that he lives. So we need to make sure that the discussions should be made with the people and the respective political parties and come to a consensus and maybe draft a new constitution with a public consultation where every community and the people of this country can agree. So having amendments, like maybe 20 plus amendments.
How do you envisage to make a new constitution of the country and get public participation?
No, you have a system called public consultation. So you need to practice it. You need to get the ideas of people from every nook and corner and talk to them. And who needs now say how a constitution is drafted here? You get few lawyers, put it to a room, and they draft something. Then you take it to the parliament, and these politicians will agree, and they just agree on that. But instead, what we need to do is you talk through public consultation, you talk to people, and you draft a constitution.
There has been public consultation processes in 2015 under the Japan administration. There was. Then in 2000, before Chandrika Bandaranaike,
2099,
You have public consultations, but the final document will not have those ideas.
It has been there. For example, with the GL Neelan package as well, back in the 90s, those things have been decided. But just to move on from that, Mr. Nanakara, just to move on from that very, very quickly, whenever I think of sort of the language that the NPP is using now as it pertains to economic reforms, and especially our dealings with the IMF, it reminds me of Syriza and the left in Greece ahead of the 2012 elections, and the promises that they made as well when they were under immense austerity, like really bad austerity measures. Syriza leaders, Alexis Tsipras, Yanis Varoufakis, etc., they came and they promised, look, we're going to renegotiate with the IMF. They said that to the IMF representatives themselves, as the NPP did last week, in fact, and come 2015, this is 3 years later, they were forced into a compromise. And they had to compromise on a lot of the promises that they made to the public. When I see the sort of evolution of the NPP's things, well, I'm wondering whether, if the NPP is voted into power this year, or parliamentary election next year, let's say, I'm wondering whether by 2026 or 2027, whether again the NPP, like Syriza had to do in Greece, whether you all will have to walk back a lot of the promises that are being made now on the campaign stage.
Now, what is the campaign stage, what we promised? What we promised was that these austerity measures are causing a lot of problems and our production is not increasing. We want production of goods and services. And what we promised the people was that we will negotiate with the IMF. And when we met the IMF, we said exactly the same, that these measures are not working. These measures are putting too much burden on the people. So we are not going to go back on that promise, the fact that we are going to work it through. But however, what will be the outcome? Now you have to understand our bargaining powers. You have to understand the position we are in. You have to understand all the international agreements of sellouts as they are doing now. So our maneuvering space is limited. But we are going with a plan to renegotiate. So we are never going back on that promise to the public. The fact that we are going to renegotiate terms, I believe SJB also has said something similar on the same line.
Yes, right. I'm coming to Mr. Vikramatne on the same question.
So we are going to do that. And what is the final outcome going to be? Yes, let's work on it. Now, it may be favorable to us, it may not be.
How do you intend to increase production, Harshana?
To increase production,
It's very easy to say all these words, but
well,
how do you do it?
How do you do it is simply, it's not that simple to be honest, although I say the word simply. We need to firstly, if and when we get power, our first priority will be for three things within the first year. Food security, to prevent school dropouts, right? And rule of law. Now, these things we are going to do. Health, education, food. 4.
5.
Yeah. Rule of law has to be the thread for everything, right? So to increase production, I mean, in a nutshell, we have to increase local products and services by encouraging SMEs and creating an environment for them to run businesses. Government must engage in setting economic targets, analyzing and supporting the private sector to achieve some of these targets. But the information with us will set it up. We'll make sure the private sector operates,
Right. So
and the
Harsh,
government will play a
Harsh, I have a
role.
question for you. Now, you're saying increasing production is in the top of the agenda of the NPP,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, for anybody, I think.
Okay. The NPP for the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about the NPP. Right. So, increasing production, agriculture.
All. We have to, IT sector we have to look into, agriculture value addition we
Okay,
have
so
to.
let's talk about agriculture,
Yeah.
right? Now, last year we saw there was a severe drought in the country, and carrot prices went up to around 2,500 rupees. If an NPP government was in power, what would you all have done?
Now we have to look at how these things are done, how land is allocated. Remember, our agriculture department has the census of the lands and what is being grown. First, we have to analyze that amount of food that is needed, and thereafter these lands have to be allocated accordingly.
Because Harshana, usually
I'm trying to
change
explain.
of weather patterns won't come.
No, I'll
it
come to
comes
that.
unannounced.
Weather patterns, I'll come into it.
Yeah,
Weather
so
patterns, I'll
how
come
would
into
you
it.
do it? I'm asking.
No,
a very
we
simple
can't
question.
change the weather. I'll be honest
Yeah, that's
about
what
that.
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
We can't get the rain
If you all
gods to do
were
it on
in that
time.
situation last year, what would you all have
Well,
done?
basically, within a year or two, right, we have to create storage facilities, buffer storage. Firstly, we have to get the production. Right now, a lot of food is being wasted during transport. And customers are getting a very high price, the farmers are getting a very low price because there are bottlenecks, systems that need to be addressed, right? At supply chains, right? Yes, droughts will face. Carrots will go up in price. But the government must have a plan. Right now, the farmers are giving up.
So 2 years we have to...
No, 1 year. If you can wait till 2048 for Ranil, wait for us for 1 year. Give us 1 year.
Because you all don't say that at the election platforms.
Election platforms also we say.
You all say wait for 1 year, tighten
No,
the bill
no,
for
no,
1 year, then
no.
after that...
There
people
won't be
can
heaven.
see a-
There won't be heaven either. We will stop slipping within a year. The transformation will start from the time we take it over. So within the first year, when we say food security, health and education we are prioritizing, part of the thing is to make sure there's adequate supply of food. Our farmers doesn't need training how to farm, but they need assistance with technology, they need assistance with fertilizer.
What would you all have done? Because I recollect Harsha De Silva coming on the show a couple of years ago said he has a plan to put up storage facilities, freezers in Nabulla, but that never materialized. I can't see any storage facility
It should happen.
in Nabulla at the moment. But if this situation, you all were in power last year, because hypothetically, let's say, you all were holding government, what would you all have done? Unexpected times, what would you all have done? People want to know.
Yeah, unexpected meaning in terms of
A severe drought.
yeah.
Carrot prices went up. Vegetable prices are still on the rise, but at least have somewhat come down. But what would you all have done differently?
Yeah, so there are specific things you will do depending on the circumstances. But I think the larger issue is how will we handle the economy generally. I think that people keep talking about production and increasing this and increasing that. Really, to do that, the country just needs to have savings and investment. And Sri Lanka's savings are low. Generally, we are like 15%, 20% of GDP. India is like about 30-35%. China is like 50%. So Sri Lanka is generally low. And therefore, we have to create an environment in which investments will come in. So rule of law, definitely. Anti-corruption measures, we have to be specific on that. So one thing that we will do is create confidence. We will create an independent public prosecutor's office. That is very, very important to do. I mean, officials and politicians rob and steal. I'm the minister today. I have a lawyer. He's the attorney general. Tomorrow I rob and steal. The same lawyer is supposed to prosecute me. It doesn't happen, hasn't happened for 40 years. We'll create an independent public prosecutor's office. Then, if you're a businessman, SME, or you have a corporation, you have to deal with customs, with the inland revenue, and excise. These are the three big ones, and there are a whole lot of other small institutions as well. We will basically put in technology. For example, we will create a centralized revenue collecting authority. So you open your LC in the bank, your imports are coming, you go to the customs only clears whether the goods have come, is it the proper chess code, customs sends an electronic message to central payments authority, revenue collection authority, the customer pays it there, message goes there, goods are cleared. What are we doing? We are minimizing the interaction between the citizen, the customer, and the public official. This is nothing new. This has been done in other countries. I'll give you simple examples. You drive through the traffic light, it's red. Policeman stops you. You get into a conversation with the police. You know what the fine is. What happens is normally you give something less and you are sent away. You hear this. These are common stories in these countries where they're talking to the municipality or the police or anyone. How do you do it in other countries? You go through the red light, nobody stops you. You get a letter at home saying you've gone through the red light, please pay this fine. If not, the case will be pressed. How have they done it? Use of technology. Ours, we have moved from policy to implementation on anti-corruption measures. So we're creating actually the framework. And then there are other things that we will do. And I will say one or two quick examples, because I think ultimately it's not just about policy, it's about implementation. And how are you going to implement it? Who is going to do it? We'll open up the system, right? When people talk about production today, people think, we brought up in this idea that if my father was the carpenter, then the son has to do the job of the carpenter. This is the old thinking. It's completely different today. Today we have to get integrated with the rest of the world. We have to basically, what we mean by our production is not making a desk and a chair and increasing the number of desks and chairs. Our idea of our production is being a part of a value chain. If this has 50 country component, if Sri Lanka can get into this value chain in the production of this becomes ours, because our markets are not local. This is a small country which is a small market, but it's selling to the global market. So one more important point I would like to make. Sri Lanka has two unique selling points. One is its geography in terms of being open to the South Asian subcontinent. Yards, ships, whatever, and our openness and the shipping routes and all. The second is human resources. We are very clear on this, and this I must say, in January also 2023, Parliament appointed Select Committee on Higher Education, right? And in this Select Committee on Higher Education, we debated for 6 months. We came to a discussion and we said the spend on education must go up. Small countries, every individual is important. Every child needs to have a higher education, university, professional or vocational. We won't send our mothers and sisters to countries to earn $300 when they can earn $3,000. Why do it? So we agreed on that. Then we agreed that the supply of education cannot only be the state. The private sector is legitimate, and also non-government, non-profit distributing sector. We agreed on that. We said government's role is on quality management. 6 months later the report came and we had to sign. We all signed. But the NPP representative, right, and I'm saying this, sent a letter, and the letter said that if we do this, it will weaken the education sector, the university sector. I said, what? If you go onto the internet and you look, Sri Lankan universities are between 1,000 and 2,000 in terms of its ratings. I think we are very clear as a party. We are opening the system. We want the top universities in the world also to come and set up here. We want good vocational training institutes, not just the German tech from 50 years ago. We want them to come and set up here as well. So human resources will get priority when you look at this total process.
So, I want to switch to Shanakin, but because you can respond to that.
No, I do not know who this NPP representative or what the letter that was sent.
Dr. Harini.
Right. Then I can tell you what our policy is, because Dr. Hari would say the same. Right. We are not against private education. We believe the state has a role to play ensuring quality and monitoring. We are not against foreign universities coming here. But the state letting go of the education sector is not something we are for, right? I don't know the exact details that went into it. You can look at our policy document also. What we are saying is this: people must have a choice, but the government, it has to be a real choice. Many people are sending students to private universities and private schools because there's no places for quality or standards in the government establishments, right? When it comes to school, they look for a government school. So therefore, we want, our government will take it as a duty to provide this free education. But that doesn't mean we are going to ban foreign universities or against it. Let them come in with the proper thing. Let there be investments, absolutely fine. So but we will quality control and set standards for it.
Let's say medical universities are intended to set up shop in Sri Lanka. What would be the position of the NPP?
NPP position will be quite simple. We will treat it just like any other private education establishment, but we will look at their world reputation. We'll look at their world reputation. We don't want some like, fly-by-night operators coming here. When the private education is given, we want to make sure that our students have a standing in the world. It has to be a recognized qualification. But establishing medical faculties are not that easy, because you need to work with the government, because they need clinical trials. So they need a government hospital, because private hospitals doesn't get enough patients for them to practice.
Selling of state assets. What's the position of the...
We are for restructuring. We are willing to work with the private sector. But selling off is not the only way to restructure. We believe things have changed a lot from the 60s and the 70s. We are not going to hold on to all the oranges either. We will figure out, we have a strategy and economic plan. What is strategically important for us, we tend to work with the government. Right. But there are certain things we can let the private sector handle, and some certain ones will be public-private partnerships. Some certain sectors, there will be injections of capital and technology from the private sector. Sometimes the management will be done by the private sector.
When the representatives of the NPP went to India, was there any discussion about the private sector of India taking over institutions, state institutions in the country?
You mean AMU?
I don't know, you tell me.
No, I'm just asking you whether well, basically, it was an invitation by the Indian government. We did speak and we did visit.
No, I'm not asking about the visit now. We are all aware.
So what's the question?
My question is, was there any discussion about selling state assets, and what was the position of the NPP at that time? Because in Sri Lanka, you all portray yourselves as a very patriotic party.
We are.
But
we
when you go outside the country,
we spoke about Amul, and we did say, especially now, Amul is a place where we can learn a lot from. Amul is paying nearly 100 rupees or 90 rupees or something, 80 rupees or something for a litre of milk. We are only paying 35 rupees. So we want that technology, we would like them to come. So when we ask them, why are you? It's a government who has sold them, right? They have only wanted one farm or two. But we are the ones who have said, take the entire 28,000 acres. And also there's no transparency, which we objected to. They also understood, we criticized them.
So you criticized them?
Yes, with Amul we spoke, and there was some heated There was some heated up argument, because then finally they said, it's unsolicited one. It is done by your government and not by us, which is very true. Which is very true. So we can't find fault with Amul for that.
So then what did you all say after that?
Well, basically, we are willing to work with them. Even Amul itself is a public-private partnership of India.
I am asking you this, Harshana. I am asking you this.
Yeah.
One of your party members on record had gone and said that if you all were in power, you all will stop paying the ISP holders.
No, that's not correct. That's not correct. Because you see, ISP holders, it has to be restructured. There may be, we have to negotiate.
Paid.
It has to be paid.
Yeah.
But the thing is this, these days...
these are dangerous statements.
No. See,
because you all can play to the gallery.
No, it's not playing the gallery. No, Shamir.
End of the day,
Shamir, we are not playing to the gallery.
Bolts and nuts.
No, we have done banking. No, Shamir, no, I have to stop you there, because you know why?
Tell me.
Don't look at 1 or 2 minute edits of what our opponents are putting out. It's a serious problem for us these days. They take things out of context. They edit Lal Kant, they edit Handun and put it out. Watch the full thing. In the context, what we are saying is not that we can stay without paying them. You see Harshana Surya Pariman, the banking forum, how we explained, we have to recognize the ISP. We have a serious problem. These days, right, we are being misquoted very badly. So when you are seeing something, I also invite you, you are saying it in all good faith. I don't think you are trying to, send me up a gum tree or something like that. But you will also have to watch. Because some videos, when I watch, I have to call the party to find out whether we said something like that. Then I know it's a very careful edit.
Right.
So we have never said that we are not going to pay ISP.
This is a constructive engagement.
Yeah,
we are trying to get the best out of the panelists.
Of course.
So the people are well informed.
Of course.
So Shanikan, recently we saw the Tamil National Alliance member Sumandiran attending the meeting with President Ranil Wickremesinghe on the IMF. Was there any concrete response that you all got from President Ranil Wickremesinghe on this when you all met him? Because you all were the only political party from the opposition to attend that meeting. Well, if you all did not go for that meeting, wouldn't that have showed the people of Sri Lanka that the opposition was one and they have the same voice, or you all have wanted to just stand out in terms of this meeting? What was the sentiments that was running in your the party membership?
To be very honest, I can't comment on that because we haven't had a discussion on that yet. But I was in Batiklo at the time. This was I saw on the news as well myself that Mr. Sambandhan leader of the TNA, had announced that we would attend the meeting. But then Honorable Sridharan had said that he will not be able to attend, but Honorable Sumandiran did attend it. I think at the meeting, President had agreed to table some document. I think the list of I'm not too sure. Like I said, I can't comment on it because it's not something that I'm very
because this is
up to date
the first time, Shanakan, that the TNA has been engaged in some economic discussion.
That's not true at all.
Because now you all have been talking about
That's not
devolution
very
of
true
power.
at all.
Okay, just tell me an instance.
No,
and
Honorable
appraise me,
Sumandiran,
please.
as the former Committee on Public Finance, has chaired more than 3 to 4 meetings since Honorable late Mangala Samaraweera passed away. I think he took on Mr. Mangala Samaraweera, but did hold some meetings about how the economy is going to crash as soon as President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, 9th Parliament sat. And then since the demise of Honorable Mangala Samaraweera, Mr. Sumandiran took upon that role as the Committee on Public Finance, and he has been able to bring in every single political party to one table during the economic crisis. So that is not true at all, that TNA is not involved. It is that, even the discussions, I was just listening to my co-panelists. You see, my position is that my view is that you can't have one blanket policy for the entire country. That if it's agriculture, the agriculture issues that are faced in Batiklo, in the eastern province, are so different to the agriculture issues that have been faced in the carrot issue that you mentioned about 2000, the carrot problem. So you can't have one blanket policy. Even if you take tourism, the issues that the tourism sector faces in Arugambe is not the same as Mirissa. So you see, we can't have one blanket policy, which is why we think devolution is important for the entire country. Right. So, it's very unfair to say that
we have the same thing for paddy as well, because
for sure,
because the authorities, the agriculture department, for example, considers the beginning of the season as when things start in Polonnaru.
Correct.
Farmers in Ampara, Batiklo are severely inconvenienced.
And
when it comes to things like releasing water,
more than releasing water, just recently the fertilizer subsidies were paid to our people, farmers, after they had harvested. Because they paid based on the other districts. So, see, it's good and easy to talk about policy and change and all these things, unless even education. For an example, during the height of the economic crisis, schools in the northern province and the eastern province functioned because the system there is that they ride bicycles to school. They don't depend on public transport, or either they walk, and there's no public transport mostly in most regions. So we can't have one blanket policy, which is why I hope the serious contenders in an upcoming presidential election would take these into consideration, that the center cannot control and decide everything. If they try to do that, there will be some section of the country or some part of the country where things are not working properly. So even with education, let it be anything, fisheries. Now if you look at the fishermen's issue in the north, it's the Indian trawlers or the Indian illegal trawlers. That's what they're accused of. But then now we hear that there are some local politicians who are also involved in trawling. They are putting the blame on the Indian trawlers. There are some, some, not all. But if you ask a fisherman from Matara or Batiklo, even Trinco, even in the north and this, they will say, what Indian trawlers, we have no problem with that. So, we need to basically dissect our problems to an extent where we can actually find, real solutions.
So Janaka, now recently we saw electricity tariffs being increased by nearly 300%, and then the government went on to reduce it by 22%. And you were the very vocal Public Utilities Commission former chairman, and as a result of that you had to be voted out through an impeachment as well. How would you tackle this differently in the event, hypothetically, you are elected as the president?
Not only
what would be the electricity tariffs right out? Because I remember in 1994, when Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga was elected as the president, in her inaugural speech, she said that the pound of bread will be brought down to 3 rupees and 50 cents. Now you will have that opportunity if you are elected as the president of the country. What would be the electricity tariff?
Now, we have been talking about IMF interference. So this has been there when I was at UCS as a chairman. But we managed to convince them, even this time is the same, when tariff was reduced almost by 21% overall, IMF and the government got panicked. But what happens is in tariff revisions that you look at the demand and supply for the next 9 months until December. Based on that, you decide a tariff according to the act that CB cannot make any profits because they can recover only the cost where they spend to generate this thing. Even with IMF, you can reason it out. And if I am selected, I think
Not selected, elected.
yes,
Elected.
if I am elected,
Because you won't be selected like Ranil Wickremesinghe. You have to be in parliament for that.
yes.
If you're elected.
When I'm elected as the president, we are looking at 10 sectors. There we need economic revival because next election of this country will be decided not on politics, on economic front of the country. Now see, we are looking at price stabilization of common commodities to be kept without changing for previous. How you do that? With intervention like in Europe, and you can see it in America, Europe, and in Australia, the common commodities prices will not change for 10-15 years. And you look at rice or maybe chicken or maybe potato, whatever it is. Now we have selected 20 items where the price of those commodities will be kept without changing for few years. Then we are looking at now we are looking at 10 billion deficit in our economy where the economic plan should be there to generate money. Now see, we have not been paying our loans for last 2 years. It has added almost another $15 billion into our stock of debts. Now how do you manage the economy that you need to improve your GDP? Now say we are looking at contraction of our economy for last 2 years, 8 plus 3, almost 12%. We are looking at maybe plus 1% this year. Now with 2 to 3% of GDP growth, we cannot reach even our pre-pandemic the development even for next 10 years. Now therefore what you need to do is you need to improve your exports, you improve your tourism, you improve your FDI. So you look at our FDI for last maybe a couple of years, you don't get even $500 million a year. Even if you get $500 million this year, when it materializes, it will take few years. Now you have the numbers, but money will not come. Now you need to have an economic plan. Now see, we are looking at SME. Now more than 1,000 SME businesses are closed. You look at agriculture. We are looking at 1 million metric tons of rice has not been produced for last 2 years because of the climatic conditions. Now in a situation like this, you need to bring some economic theories and make sure the government intervention like in the other Western countries into economic affairs and make sure that you stabilize the commodity prices. And you now say, we were talking about the privatizing. Now say people get misinterpreted on restructuring. Restructuring is not privatization. Restructuring, revival of the business entities is not privatization. Now see, people are talking about privatizing CEB now. CEB is the largest business entity in Sri Lanka where they have more than 7 billion and within making more than 100 billion, and there's no need for anyone to restructure because it's running perfectly. You look at the best 2 banks in the country making 30-40 billion every year, although economy is going down, the banks are making. It means that the government management or maybe intervention into these entities are very minimum. So whether it is owned by the government or the private sector.
You're saying the banks are making profits or?
Yeah, banks are making huge profits. Now say you look at economic contraction for last 2 years.
Yeah, but if you look at technically, I don't know whether Iran will agree with me, banks have been really stressed, Janaki.
Yeah, maybe they may have liquidity issues.
Banks are the only components who are paying their taxes properly, and at the time that we needed the money, they were pumping in. So I don't know whether you're aware of that, but
if you look at how much they pump maybe 20-30 billion. Less than maybe 2 months of
you can't look at a balance sheet and then decide whether the banks.
I mean the amount that they pay to the coffers of the government.
Right. So, Janaki, one final question to you, and then I'm going to speak to Shanik and Harshana and Iran for their final thoughts as well. Why do I still get the feeling that this is, for you, a public act to contest an election and you are not really serious about it?
I'm very serious about it. Now you see what has happened to our
hoarding in Borello does not make it
No. Hoarding in Borello, Colombo 7 in my office will not make any impact. You have to make the impact in people's mind.
But have you gone to the people?
We are going to the people. Now,
How
the
are you going to uplift?
purpose of this, even this encounter is to go to the
Yes,
people.
but do you have plans? How are you going to uplift the upcountry community? How are you going to provide solutions
No,
to farmers who don't
making
even
the
get a proper
economic-
price
No.
for their products? How are you going to stop brain drain? Do you have those plans?
In other words, Lavesh is asking, have you even spoken to the people down your lane?
Now, see, if you underestimate the caliber of people who are contesting, I think you are mistaken. Now, I do contest for a reason, because I have felt the pulse of the people, and therefore you cannot underestimate whether I have spoken to the people on my lane, or maybe I haven't gone to Jaffna, or maybe down south. You should not, because without my assessment, I won't come into this.
Right.
And when I go everywhere, people accept me.
We wish
Now,
you all
I
the very best.
accepted you. That's why you have invited me here, even with this veteran politician.
But at the same time, Ms. Ratna, you have to admit, even in 2019, General Mahesh Senanayake felt the same way, and he had a pretty big team behind him under the Light Bulb Party, including several prominent lawyers, civil society
any other
actors.
contestant.
But he ended up with only about 50,000
No, you
votes.
can't compare. Now the political landscape of this country is changing. And you need to believe in that and see. Now, say, if you think it is only politics which will decide the fate of the country, it is not politics which is going to decide the fate of the country. It is economics. Now, people need to eat to vote. And do they have plans for people to give people to eat? No, they don't have plans. They will talk about many things, but talk about how we are going to feed the nation and get them to work to develop the country. This is our plan that I have.
Right. Okay. So now, Shanika Rasmanika, Member of Parliament, TNA, what is the way forward for Sri Lanka? Shanika?
Well, to be very honest, I think the way forward is, I think honesty, a lot of honesty is needed on the part of most political parties. I think why I say that is because it's election year. We could have presidential election, we could have parliament election. Only Ranil Wickremesinghe himself would know which one we would have first. I think honesty is absolutely important, because what most political parties who have been in power, in government power, have failed since 1956, since independence, is because pre-election, what they have said, they haven't been able to deliver post-election. Promising everything under the sun to, win an election before the polls. If they can't deliver, then obviously there's a lot of sentiment, ill sentiment amongst the people. We can, and in that sense, I think honesty is absolutely important. And one of the reasons why the party that I represent has stood for so long is because we have always been honest to the people of what we stand for and what we actually can accomplish and what we have accomplished. And people may agree or not, but the people who matter in the north and the east who vote for our party, people who matter to the party in terms of votes, have trust in our party, because we have always said what we actually hope to achieve. So in that sense, I think the major political parties and also the other candidates, who are throwing their hat in the ring for, to run for presidency or even to take over government power, should be honest and tell the country the real situation. If somebody is going to say, we can work without the international community, without the support of the international community, or we can, not listen to, a certain section of the country, if we can completely ignore the sentiments of a certain section of the country, they are going to also fail miserably. So, and as a young citizen of this country, I don't want to see more struggle, more problems for my fellow citizens, in even the number of people who are migrating. I mean, most of my friends, not just my electorate, most of my friends who have, they have migrated, or they're even hoping to migrate. So, are we going to be a country where, we will not have young people, who will even do something productive in this country, where, we will never go to the promised glory.
Right.
So, I think honesty is absolutely essential. So, I hope the main political parties and the real, people who are very serious about, their chances at upcoming elections are honest to the entire country about their positions.
Thank you very much, Shanika Rasmanika, Member of Parliament from the TNA. Attorney at Law Harshan Anakar, NPP.
Well, firstly, we have to understand that rule of law has to be established. Even for the economy to survive, you might have the best of economic plans, but they're not going to work if there's waste and corruption and impunity. So therefore, under NPP government, rule of law will be established as a matter of priority. Secondly, we have to establish a good political culture, a good one, a decent one. Replace this old, corrupt, wasteful one. Because that is what the public demands. That's what the youth of this country demands. This is what the 2022 Aragale people demanded. At a ground level, there's a massive change. I'm asking the people to consider this year as a year of change, not just to replace one leader with another, not just to replace one minister with another, but to have a system overhaul. That system is not just economics, because our society is deteriorating, society is ailing, humanity is missing, there's no empathy, our people are way too dry, no emotions. We want the society to be good. I know economy has to recover, but humanity also has to recover. I think humanity suffered together with this economic crisis. We are telling you as the NPP, yes, we do have the plans. And one last thing for the public. These days, we are a little popular among our political opponents, and we have become a kind of a common target. So us being misquoted, misrepresented, edited videos on YouTube, social media, all over the place, sometimes even I get confused thinking that it's ours. But to be honest, they're done by paid professionals, so you can get hoodwinked. So please, if there's an issue, if there's a thing that you are not sure about us, engage with us, ask from us, not from our opponents. We will always clearly tell you what we know. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harshana. Iran Vikramaratne, Member of Parliament, SJB.
Yeah, I agree that the rule of law is supreme, and that needs to be established. And anti-corruption becomes then a part of the rule of law. And the rule of law has to be established for another reason, that every single person born in this country, irrespective of race or religion, has to be treated equally. We will not hold people responsible for decisions they have not made. And my mother said this to me one day: Iran, you didn't choose to be born in this country. You were told it was Sri Lanka. You didn't choose to be born to the Sinhala race. You were told you were a Sinhalese. You didn't choose to be born to the Vikramaratne family. As you were growing up, you were told your name is Vikramaratne. That's very much our philosophy, that everybody has to be treated equally. And therefore, we will be working on when I meant rule of law, I'm talking about identity, I'm talking about dignity of people. Everything has to be done. And then we have lots of Sri Lankans who have gone and they're living overseas. This group of overseas Sri Lankans are the biggest asset this country has. Often they have been seen as a liability. They are a big asset, knowledge-wise, technology for technology transfer and investment. We are going to bring in a whole set of new laws and make it also very easy for them to reconnect with this country. Direct foreign investment will come, but first, Sri Lankans overseas need to be welcome in this country to actually invest in this country. And we are going to create the environment for those people to come. As I said earlier, we will move from hard infrastructure into focusing on soft infrastructure so that every child, we create opportunity for every child. We are not going to get caught up in ideological debates. We are going to just make it open and become pragmatic on this. Moving from policy, it's implementation. When you look at political parties, right, and look at MPs, often lots of them have never really done a job even. Not got up in the morning, got onto a train or a bus or a van and gone to work. They don't know to have a boss. They don't know about having KPIs. They don't know about being evaluated. They don't know about being promoted and demoted. They don't know about getting a bonus and getting a pay increase or not a pay increase. So implementation is an issue. We are moving away from the idea that one person can change this. It needs a team to change it. And the team ethics and character is important, but they need to have education, they need to have experience. Without experience, you can't really transform policy into practice and implementation. So the challenge I put forward to every listener is, look at the political party, not just those who get onto a mic and can speak well. A political party who has a team and who they will believe that who can actually implement the policies that they are talking about.
Right. Thank you very much, Iran Vikramaratne, Member of Parliament from the SJB. Attorney at Law Harshana Naikar representing the NPP. Shanik and Rasmanikam, Member of Parliament from the Tamil National Alliance. Janaka Ratnayaka, former chairman of the PUCSL, as well as the leader of the National Front of Civil Organizations. Thank you very much, Naveksha. Thank you very much, Nadine, for joining us this evening on the show. I leave you with a quote, as I always do. Confidence isn't optimism or pessimism, and it's not a character attribute. It's the expectation of a positive outcome. Take care and good night.